Wow, it is Tuesday, August the 15th, 2023. I don't know what time in the evening it is, but it is just now cool enough to crawl out of the tent safely without being cooked by the sunlight today. I am currently in the Goat Rocks Wilderness, about to start a backpack through the rotten, desiccated remains of the ancient Goat Rocks volcano. Currently, I'm spending my first night right here in McCall Basin. It's about a half mile off the Pacific Crest Trail, and I tried to get an early start to cover the 13 miles on the PCT, but with the forecasted 100-degree weather today, I think I just did the best I could to get here without getting burnt to death. Pretty much, I got back from Germany last Thursday, so I've been home for 4 days, just now kind of getting over the jet lag, and looking at the forecast for this week, I just noticed it was going to be extreme heat. Today, down in Packwood, I believe it was forecasted to be over 100 degrees. It definitely felt that hot up here, and it's going to be in the upper 90s for several days going into this week and going into this trip. So when I was planning to do a post-Europe backpacking trip, it came down to two decisions, either going to the William Douglas Wilderness or coming here to the Goat Rocks. I ultimately chose the Goat Rocks because I just felt like there'd be more water sources available here. The forest is still a little green, it's not all pine trees, and I don't really fear that this forest is going to catch on fire as easily as I would imagine some of them in the William Douglas Wilderness might. So I was going to flip a coin between the two. I really wanted to go check out the William Douglas, but ultimately I'm glad I chose the Goat Rocks. I've never been here before. It's one section of Washington's Cascades that I have not experienced. So I'm really anxious to see things from a new perspective this week. I do have a general plan going into this trip. The plan is not set in stone, but I do have some ideas of where I'd like to camp. The trip does include some standard campsites along the Pacific Crest Trail, which I'll be traveling along for a lot of the trip, but I also plan on branching off into different directions on some other trails, and hopefully I can fit in some cross-country travel as well. Nothing about the trip is set in stone, and the plan can be changed when new variables pop up along the way. And it just so happens that this is my first and biggest backpacking trip this season, and it feels really good to be solo here in a raw North American wilderness. It's one thing I missed when I was in Europe, thinking back about home, was I just wished at times that I was on a backpacking trip, and I'm really glad and happy to be here in this moment right now. It was a cooker today. Very dry, very hot, and very windy. But right now, it is cooling off immensely, and it is quite pleasurable out. So far, there's no mosquitoes. This is McCall Basin. I believe that's Tieton Peak across the valley over there. Everything's winding down for the day. Everything kind of has a late August golden burnt tinge hue to it. Still a lot of greenery though. Here's the local watering hole here at McCall Basin. Felt really good. Pretty much bathed in that twice today. I have a feeling I'm going to be doing a lot of swimming on this trip if I can, which I'm all right with. I love getting in the water. I love all the crazy cool things you find just searching around camp at the end of the day. Just up and around the corner from camp is this upper basin. But look at all the dead trees. All those trees in there are dead and dry. Kind of scary. And you come through the brush and you're greeted with this beautiful flat willow basin. Just a little bit higher than McCall Basin down below. And here's my camp in the lower McCall Basin. If I ever come back, I'm definitely going to camp in that upper basin I just found. But this site offered a lot of shade when I arrived, and it stayed shady all the way up till the evening, when that blistering sunlight went down behind that ridge over there. And now everything's in the shade. Well, good morning. It's early on the second day, August the 16th. I got up about 3:30 this morning, made breakfast under beautiful starlight, got camp packed up really early, and I think I was on the trail about 4:30 in the morning. It was still dark. That is because of the scorching heat anticipated this afternoon. I want to get most of today's hike done in the morning coolness, and I think that's going to be a strategy for the remainder of the trip. Just coming off of a little bit of jet lag still, so it's really easy for me to get up super in the morning, and I've been getting tired, you know, well before the sun's been going down. So just using it to my benefit as I complete this backpacking trip. Just worked my way up through a lot of these meadows in here, and there's a lot of beautiful camping spots down in there. I may hit up one of them on my way out. Now I'm heading up pretty much to this ridge. It's called the Knife. I think it goes off in that direction there, and the views should really open up once I get on top of that. But I don't know how much better you can get than what I'm seeing already. This is looking off in the direction of Packwood. Should be down in that direction somewhere. And we're getting views of Mount Rainier poking up above the Goat Rocks peaks. I believe that is Packwood Saddle or Packwood Pass, because you can see Packwood Lake down there, and that means the town is just down in the valley. And I rounded this corner, and I believe that is Johnson Peak. The lake I'm planning at camping at is just on the other side of that ridge. Getting closer to the razor edge. There are glaciers in the Goat Rocks wilderness. This is kind of what they amount to. Stagnant little sheets of ice tucked up right against the crest of the ridge. Just holding on for dear life. You can see where that little trickle of water is running. That is that upper McCall Basin I scouted out last night. It'd be a cool place to camp if I ever come back. And now I'm getting some really good open views of kind of the interior of the Goat Rocks wilderness. I'm going to drop down here to this knife edge and traverse across the top of it. After, I don't know, a couple hours of hiking, just took a pretty good break at this fantastic spot. I'm going to lose quite a bit of elevation here in just a second. So everything I just gained, I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to go right back up. So there's a lot of ups and downs along this feature that the map has labeled as the knife. I think I called it the razor earlier. But I gotta go all the way down to there and then gain all of it back up to about that point right there. And then I'll drop down again after that. I opted to take the shadowed shortcut instead of going up a little higher along the knife. The sun's already very hot if you're exposed to it, and it was quite cool coming along the side of the hill here. Still staying on the Pacific Crest Trail, and I got my first glimpse of today's destination. Still got quite a ways to go though until I get there. Kind of came over this divide and rounded a corner, and I'm leaving one old set of views, but trading it for something completely different. Tonight's camp looks really open and not a lot of trees to hide in. And then over there you can see Mount St. Helens, and just incredible views of the South Cascades of Washington State. Do not get to spend that much time in a lot of this country. And then a really good shot of the north face of Mount Adams. I am currently on Lily Basin Trail, and I have left the PCT, which is up there, further up in the rocks. And I'm on my way out to Goat Lake. I should have less than 2 miles to go, and it's sitting in that bowl right over there. I have made it to Beautiful goat lake. Just in time too, because that heat really starting to wear on me. I'm gonna go set up camp, hopefully in a place with some shade, and check out for a little bit. I just had to wait a few hours for the shade to fill this spot. Put my tent up. It's very comfortable right here. Just outside of the shade though, burns the skin pretty quickly. Definitely gotta have to have plenty of sun protection on a day like today. Or go take a nice cold dip in the lake. It is approaching the afternoon hour that I think is right to head up to Hawkeye Point. Got a really good view of the lake, but the shadows are quickly overtaking it. Let's see what the views are like when we get up top up there. The sun is so blinding. From my angle, I finally got a little bit of a shadow from that rock there before I walk back out into it. It's going down quickly. So there's the Goat Rocks, and then Goat Lake is right up around that corner. And I just took this very pleasant section, about a mile long, of the Lily Basin Trail, and now the climb resumes. Here's the view from the summit of 7,431 foot Hawkeye Point. The collection of peaks over there is the Goat Rocks. There's the knife that I was hiking on earlier today. McCall Basin is on the other side of that ridge, like down in there. That's going down the Tieton River. I think Rimlock Lake is way over in that valley. That's the collection of peaks I walked through on day number 1 coming up from White Pass. When I was first looking at the map, I thought I'd easily just walk up here and go along this ridge for an evening stroll, and I'll tell you what, that's not going to happen. It's very rugged here in the Goat Rocks. There's Mount Rainier, perspectives. I'm always looking over at these peaks from over there, and now it's just a reverse world. The lighting isn't really picking up just the accordioned ridges after ridge after ridge of the southern Cascades. I love that type of view where you get the low angle light and that haze and just all those beautiful Cascade foothills. Here's the way I came up. Drops down pretty quickly to that mellow mile stretch of trail that's down there. Nothing looks more desolate than the land between Goat Rocks and Mount Adams. It's just flat trees. It's very forest fire prone. Tomorrow's adventure, I'm going to be off in that part of the wilderness. It brings us back to the beginning here. looking down on camp. It filled up really quickly. There are quite a few campers enjoying themselves down at Goat Lake. Well, that was pretty cool. Definitely needed some views like that. That might be the high point of the trip. You never know. I did have cell service up there, and I got a hold of Sarah. She said it was over 100 degrees in the lowlands today, but I got a clear weather report for the remainder of my trip here in the Goat Rocks. There's no rain in the forecast, but it is going to cool off substantially. So it looks like the heat wave is over. Well, good morning. This is the third day of the trip, August the 17th, and I've been hiking since about 4 a.m. I got up really early again, packed up camp in the dark, covered the 3 miles from Goat Lake to the link up with the Pacific Crest Trail, which I'm currently on right now. Today's destination, gonna head to a place called Nanny Ridge, I think is what it's called. And there's a tiny little lake just off the PCT called Sheep Lake. I think I'm gonna camp there tonight. There's a really good view of Basin. I'll be coming back through here tomorrow. Sun is starting to kiss the peaks around me. It is already much, much cooler than what it was the last couple of days. What a beautiful spot. All right, I've just crested over Cispus Pass, and I'm looking right down the Klickitat drainage, which is right there. I'm going to make my way on this side of the Klickitat divide. I'm loving the colors and the pumice that's making up the ground here. Look at all these columns of andesite. Pretty good lava flow. Probably came from the Goat Rocks volcano. I just crossed over from the Klickitat divide, and I'm greeted with more vast expanses green mountain meadows. I should only have about 1.5 miles left of hiking today before I get to my next camp, which is going to be somewhere, I think, down in that saddle. After about 8.8 miles of hiking, I have arrived at my destination for the day, Sheep Lake. It's just situated in some subalpine meadows. This is the furthest south along the PCT I am traveling within the Goat Rocks Wilderness on this trip. There's a really nice campsite right up there. Just got vacant, and I swooped in and grabbed it. Here's how my camp is situated at Sheep Lake. It's just off of the Pacific Crest Trail. There's been a few people moving through, but for the most part, I've had it all to myself this afternoon. The variety of bird noises and activity of birds has been remarkable. Literally, they're running into the tent, chasing insects around. Really quiet spot thus far. When I did arrive and I was looking around for a camp spot, not far off the trail, I found this bag of Ruffles filled with food garbage and other items. We can do better than this. Leaving garbage around in campsites just causes a host of other problems. All right, it is the early afternoon. I've gotten off my feet for a couple hours, some stretching, laying about, and I can lay around camp all day, but might only be here once, so I'm going to take the 2-mile hike out to Nanny Peak. It follows the crest of Nanny Ridge. Shouldn't take me that long. Just get a better feel for the extent of the Goat Rocks Wilderness. I'm really loving this walk through this very just pristine, healthy forest on the way up to Nanny Peak. I think I'm just below the top here, but this has just kind of reminded me of like Crater Lake, high Cascades of Oregon type of forest. It's a lot of it. I am on the summit of Nanny Peak. It's more like an elongated ridge with fir trees, pretty much along the whole summit, top of it. And we're getting excellent views of Washington's Southern Cascades. Down here, you can't see it, is Wallopped Lake, and the PCT comes right up from the Mount Adams Wilderness over there, and then it comes over here. It cuts across on the inside of this ridge right here. And this is actually the boundary, the southern boundary of the Goat Rocks Wilderness. And then down here, this is the Wallopped Creek drainage, and it goes up to its head wall further up the valley. Way over on the far horizon, you can see Mount St. Helens and the Mount Margaret Wilderness, or the peaks that make up the Mount Margaret area. Never done any hiking there before. I'd like to try it out someday. And I think this is where the Cispus River goes out to join up with the Cowlitz. Might be wrong though. It always seems like at these old lookouts or on top of these peaks in the Cascades that offer really good views, there's the remains of an old fire lookout. Well, this old fire lookout marks the extreme southern extent that I'm hiking into this wilderness. And from this point, turning around and slowly making my way back to White Pass. Before going back to camp, I made my way over to the northern side of Nanny Peak, and it's just another impressive view, but look in the opposite direction. You can't see this from standing on the south side. And very good panorama of the Goat Rocks. My camp should be somewhere right in there as where Sheep Lake is. And the PCT goes right up along this to that pass. It drops on the other side, and for a brief moment it's on the Yakima Indian Reservation, and it makes its way up to Sispus Pass. Tomorrow I plan on heading up at least to that pass to look over the other side to see if it's feasible to go over there. It's a big day for sure. You can barely make it out. There's Mount Rainier, and then that peak right there is Hawkeye Point, and that's where I was standing last night. All right, after a nice refreshing bath and dip in the lake and some supper, it's time to get some well-needed rest and relaxation. It's almost time to go to bed. And another fulfilling day of backpacking in the Goat Rocks Wilderness is coming to a close here at Sheep Lake. Good night, everybody. Well, good morning. It is Friday and the fourth morning of the trip. I am leaving the Pacific Crest Trail today to see if I can pull off a pretty ambitious off-trail section of the route. That is provided that it's safe to do that. I'm going to make my way up to the pass right here behind me and scope out the route. If it looks safe, I'm going to proceed. If it's slide death on the other side and there's not very good footing, I might just find a high place to camp along the ridge of Goat Rocks, or just make my way back down here to Sispus Basin and spend the night there. Really cool being underneath these walls and spires. The Goat Rocks peaks. Almost there to the saddle. It's going by quickly. There's sunrise. It's pretty windy today. It's supposed to be a lot cooler than what it was earlier in the trip. I don't think it's supposed to get much above mid-70s today. All right, I have attained this high saddle along the crest of the Goat Rocks peaks. This is what I mean by slide death. I'm going to go up there in just a moment and look over the other side, but that does not look too promising to descend with trail runners. Regardless, it's a pretty awesome view into the colorful rocks of the interior of this dead volcano. Another option is to go up over that and drop down to that saddle and see if there's any good camping over there. That might also be a possibility. It's extremely windy up there, just on that ridge top. Strong enough to blow me over. This is kind of where I wanted to go. I'm just fighting the decision in my head right now. I would have to drop down all of this, across that stream here, to that gap right there. I might just drop down here just to scout it out a little bit more. These rocks are fine, and I just tried to cross that slope, and it is very rock slide prone, so I decided not to go that way. This snow field is not snow, it's pretty much solid ice. I'm not going to risk going across that even with an ice axe, so I don't know if that way is going to work out on this trip. I took a little break in Basin, but ultimately I decided to move further up the Pacific Crest Trail. It's really easy traveling on it. Kind of a bummer I didn't get to do off-trail portion that I wanted to. I got a little bit of off-trail in. I got up on top of the ridge and scrambled around a bit. It just didn't seem right, you know, in my gut to continue on, considering just how steep some of those slopes were and the way the rocks were just sliding away under my feet in some portions. Came back down to Basin. There's a couple groups there. It looks like they're gonna spend another night there. They've been there. They were there yesterday when I came through. And since I have so much daylight left today, I just decided to move further up the trail. Hopefully I can find a place to camp in Snowgrass Flats. There's a lot of nice meadows up there. Should be quite beautiful. It does not take very long to get around to the opposite side of the Goat Rocks from where I was. This morning I was up through that notch and on the ridge that runs that way. I'm in the vicinity of Snowgrass, but not really finding any water sources to camp next to. Just make decisions as I go and play it by ear. I don't know what's wrong. I can't find a place that I like. I just moved past Snowgrass Flat. Not really feeling it here, so I'm just gonna keep going. I'm making my way back along the knife here. The wind really hasn't died down much and the rock is really loose. And I fell right here, right on my back. And the GoPro broke off of the tripod and went cartwheeling down the hill. And it stopped up against a rock down there just before going over the cliff. Probably wasn't worth my life going down there to get it, but I very tediously did, and it still works. The lens is all shattered and cracked, but I've had enough excitement for today. All right, I have made it to a suitable place where I can set up camp for the night. I passed through this section on day number 2. I really liked the views from here. It's a nice grove of trees. I can sit in the shade. And the rocks are very colorful. kind of just passing away the afternoon hours, sitting here in this grove of trees. The place to put the tent up is right out there, but there's no shade yet, and the wind is really strong still. We just blow it around and maybe away. So I'm going to wait until the sun goes down a bit. Hopefully the wind dies down, and then I'll go set up my tent. But this is going to be the last camp of this trip. And for dinner tonight, I have a pack of tuna, some Ichiban ramen, and Mountain House chili mac with beef. Love to just drink the broth without the noodles in it. I'll take those noodles and eat them secondly. Here is looking north from my camp and the way out of here tomorrow. Right here, this is the clear fork of the Cowlitz River, and it goes down and links up with the Ohanakaposh and the Muddy Fork coming off of Mount Rainier. You can see Highway 12 right there, and it goes up to White Pass. And this is the way I hiked in and the way I'm going to leave in the morning. The trail, it comes from behind this mountain here, and it weaves through these forests, and then it climbs slowly up through this burn. It goes around that peak, and then I'll come out right there and go over the other side and pretty much drop down to White Pass beyond there. Here's the basin I'm camping in. It's kind of elevated above the valleys behind me. This is looking to the south now. Just up there, that's the beginning of the knife. And the trail actually comes down along that ridge. And it looks so far away looking at it from down here and from looking down on this point from up there. Distances are just hard to judge. It's a good water source here. Looking into the sun now, you can see how close it is to the ridge and going behind it. And then there's my tent. Just got it set up. Wasn't that bad. Just had to go about it with some order to keep it from blowing away. And hopefully when the sun goes down, the wind goes along with it. All right, sun is setting on another amazing day of hiking in the Goat Rocks Wilderness. I said today was going to be the crux day. It wasn't quite the crux I was anticipating. It was more of a crux of long mileage, fierce biting wind, and got a little bit chilly today. All in a good day's work along the trail. Good night, everybody. Rise and shine and good morning. It is the last day of the trip. I hike out today. I was kind of regretting ending it so soon, but in hindsight, it looks like it's about to get really smoky and the views are going to go away. Look at all that haze settling in the valley floors overnight. And it even smells strongly of forest fire. This is pretty much going to be my last view of the interior of the Goat Rocks Wilderness until I come back another day. Tis the season for lots of fungal growth. There's been giant mushrooms pretty much everywhere along the trail. Difference a day makes. I was camped, can't really see it, but right over there. And just in a couple of hours, look how much the smoke has risen up out of the valleys and obstructed all the views. It's getting pretty bad. Well, at this point, I only have about 2 miles left until I reach White Pass and the trip is over. I said at the beginning that I had a general plan for this outing, but nothing was set in stone, and that definitely came true. The plans changed after not doing the cross-country section, and I shortened the trip from 7 days to 5. But it was still worth every hour spent on the trail in this wilderness. I was afraid going off trail that I was going to slide to my death on just the loose rock that was on the entry point to the off-trail section. And I ended up actually falling hard on the maintained trail on the way out of there. Bad grip on my shoes and some slippery rocks, and I went down hard. That just cemented in my brain that I made the right decision, and I'm really glad I got my GoPro back after it took the tumble down the cliff. One aspect of this trip that really stood out to me was the lack of wildlife that I encountered. There were a ton of insects, very little mosquitoes, a few biting flies, a lot of bird activity, and of course, a lot of rodents. But as far as big animals go, I didn't see any deer, I didn't see any bear, and then today, as I was leaving my camp, I saw one herd of elk. They were too far away to get a shot of them, so I used my zoom lens on my camera. Hopefully it turns out. If you are interested in coming to the Goat Rocks Wilderness, I found that it was really easy to see all of the Goat Rocks from the PCT in about 2 days. It takes about a day to get into the rocks. You know, it took me, that first day to get to McCall Basin, and you got views of the peaks just on that hike. And then when you go over the knife and you do the PCT section through the actual peaks of the Goat Rocks, that takes a whole other day. The peaks themselves are just wonderfully situated between Mount Adams, Mount Rainier, and Mount St. Helens. In fact, all those volcanoes share the same fate of the Goat Rocks. When they die and their volcanic vents are extinguished, they will all end up looking like the Goat Rocks Wilderness after glaciers are done doing their work on them. The glaciers here, they exist, but they're like thin remnants of the great ones that used to be here. I thought that the Goat Rocks were a great mixture between what you see in Mount Adams and what you see in Mount Rainier. Tons of volcanic rock that was extremely hot when the sun was out. And those volcanic rocks provided a whole rainbow of colors that you see, from the purples to the reds, oranges, even blues and pinks and yellows, all different colors and hues and layers of volcanic activity that you can see, when you get a cross section of like a ridge or a cliff face. Really hiking through the Goat Rocks, you're looking into the inners of a stratovolcano, very similar to what you might see in Crater Lake. The anatomy of the inside of a Cascade volcano. Also, on top of that, the meadows here were like completely on steroids. I was completely surprised by the amount of them and the extent of them. It was like if, I love the east side of Mount Rainier and Sunrise because of the meadows they have there. Well, it's like the whole of the Goat Rocks. It's like all of the east side of Mount Rainier in an entire wilderness. So, and I've heard that the wildflower blooms here are spectacular. I was a little late, but they were still blooming in areas that had freshly melted out or where you find water. This being my first time ever seeing the Goat Rocks, I'm looking at it as like a taster. It was a little bit of a temptation to draw me back in the future, and hopefully I can go back and finish some of those cross-country routes that I wanted to try. So this is it. This was my only big backpacking trip this season of this extent and this many miles and this many days. I think altogether it's around 70 miles that I walked on this trip. Got to spend some quality time alone, just me and my thoughts, and I'm ready to go back to the grind and end summer break and go back to work. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care.